Number 1. Back when I was living with my mum, there was this clearly mentally handicapped 40-year-old man living upstairs from us. During the time I'll tell you about, it was 17-year-old me, my mum, and my 7-year-old little sister. Now, my mum was always super creeped out by this man. He had a creepy vibe right off the bat. He looked too long and too hard, smiled too readily, got too close and too personal. But I always took him as harmless. Well, almost always. I'd go to the pool with my friends, and he'd be there and follow us around. He'd ask questions about school and my family. He'd give me compliments, all the regular creepy stuff. And when I left, he'd leave too. My mum stopped going to the pool. She had a similar experience apparently. I told her that the man was just a little off. He's like a child, that's all. No threat. I stayed out a little late once and was walking home. It was perhaps 2 or 3 a.m. As I crossed through the basketball courts, he greeted me by name and invited me to play with him. I said no, and he begged me. I said no. He followed me a bit and begged some more. I said no, it's late, and he went home. So yes, he was a creep, but not a threat. He seemed fine, until the day he tried to break into my house. I was babysitting my then asleep sister, and it was perhaps 10 p.m. Much to my surprise, I heard a knock at the door. It was him, and he was trying to come in. I blocked the entrance and politely but firmly said no. He told me he was locked out and he really needed to come in. Again, I said no. I explained that we were just kids and we couldn't have any strangers in, but offered to call a locksmith. He got a little frantic. He said he was a doctor so I could trust him. What? I am 100% sure he's not a doctor. But what a strange thing to say. I told him again, sorry, but no. He said he and my mum were very close friends, and to at least call and ask her. This isn't true, but I wanted to be nice. I called my mum, knowing she'd say no. I told him to wait at the door, and I'd go grab my phone and call. I went to close the door, but he quickly stuck his foot in the door. I told him to move his foot, and he just went to the "please let me in, I'm a doctor" thing again. I tried to kick his foot away, but he stayed firm. Now, this was when I took him as a threat. I was worried for me and my sister. I told him to move. He ignored it and begged. Me and your mum are best friends, please. I'm a doctor. I'm a doctor. I grabbed the door and slammed his foot. He pulled back out of pain. He was pounding on the other side of the door, begging to come in. I called my mum, more out of fear now. She freaked out and told me to no matter what, not open the door. I didn't. I told him through the door, I'm sorry, but we're kids and can't have anyone over. He said the same things. I'm a doctor. I promise I'm a doctor. You can trust me. I'm good friends with your mum. And banged on the door a solid minute or so more before eventually leaving. Creep. Number 2. I am telling you this because of a particular person that gives me anxiety and flashbacks to one of the most horrific nights of my life. She to this very day, tries to contact me on every type of social media and doesn't get the hint that I don't want her in my life. This person is my dad's ex-girlfriend. I'll call her Jessica for the rest of the story. Some background on her. She apparently was a friend of my dad's in high school and rekindled some sort of relationship between them. My parents are divorced, and at the time of this story, I wasn't allowed to contact my own mother for legal reasons, so I was in my father's care. My dad is a very emotionally abusive person, and we never talked, or did anything else but scream and fight. He wasn't exactly father of the year, and would leave me at home for hours at a time. He also did this to his girlfriend Jessica. Jessica wasn't the sweetest person either. She had this attitude about her that screamed, "I'm better than you," and that she was the hottest woman in the world, even though she looked plain. She would constantly start drama with the other housewives in the neighborhood and gossip about them. Some days she was a nice person, but others she was just as loathsome as my father. She and my dad would constantly fight over the way the other treated them. I didn't pay attention to it, but it would all eventually come to a boil. It was the week of my 16th birthday. My father was in California delivering some person's horses for a horse show, so he couldn't be there. So I was left with Jessica, the dogs, and my bird. On Friday, the day he would be coming back, I was fiddling with one of the presents, and it was becoming late into the night. I was in my bedroom passing the time until I heard rustling noises coming from my dad's room. And then weird groaning, screaming noises. I was legitimately worried because those noises were coming from Jessica, and I thought she had gotten hurt. What I didn't know was that she had been drinking. She then started screaming like a banshee, and I was afraid to go near the room. So I called out, "Hey Jessica, are you all right in there? Do you need anything?" Apparently, that was an invitation for her to come running at me. So here I was, a defenseless girl facing off against a 50-year-old woman. She started hitting me and trying to scratch at me. I managed to grab her wrists and try to get her to tell me why she was doing this. She looked at me dead in the face, and with a low, cold voice, she growled, "I'm going to kill you." I had enough. I pushed her off of me and raced into my bedroom, locking the door. I didn't realize it at the time, but I should have called the police. But I just prayed for my father to get home soon. Finally, as if God answered my prayers, I heard my father coming through the door. He must have felt the atmosphere in the air, because he called out, "What the hell is going on?" I came rushing out in tears, telling him that it was Jessica, that she came out like a madwoman slapping me and threatening to kill me. I was shaking and terrified. I screamed, "I want her out of this house." I was truly afraid. He just stormed past me and up the stairs to their room. I don't remember much after that, but I assume she tried to blame it on me, like I was the one that attacked her. All I can remember is that the police weren't called, and we all just went to bed. That, however, isn't the end of the story. The next morning, she came into my room as I was watching TV, asking for forgiveness, acting as if we had just had a girly spat rather than her telling me that she wanted to kill me. I told her no, but of course, Dad demanded I forgive her, or else. So I did, which would usher in the behaviour of her doing horrible things to me and then acting like it had been nothing. Obviously, she and my father broke up and went on their separate ways. She tried to keep in touch with me, and I was nice to her out of politeness. It wasn't until I was in my freshman year in college that she would start up again. I did have a Facebook at the time, but I never did anything about it because I absolutely hate Facebook. And it was my first few weeks of school. I was busy and barely checked it. When I did check it, I received a nasty, childish message from her, all because I didn't accept her friend's request. She proceeded to tell me that I was just as nasty and immature as my father, that he and I used her as a slave, even though I was her buddy that she complained to about my father and all of the other women in the neighbourhood. Also, what struck a note was, she said that if it wasn't for her, that I wouldn't have been in college. Wait. Last time I checked, all she did was tell me the school's name. I, myself, did the rest. She even called me in the middle of my drawing 1 class, just to shout at me. So I proceeded to email her, telling her to never contact me again, and to never contact my dad again. I told her that I didn't appreciate her immaturity, and that I was only nice to her because of my father. Other than that, I never wanted anything to do with her. Since that message, for 2 years she tried contacting me on social media, acting as if nothing had happened, and that we were good friends. I even emailed her again, telling her to leave me alone. And she said that I was being crazy. I had since got into contact with my biological mother, and I told her this. She just flipped and told me that if Jessica contacted me again, she would threaten her with a lawsuit. Then, one day just a few weeks ago, I was on my YouTube and I got a message. I'm not a popular YouTuber, I just use it to watch videos. And lo and behold, it was Jessica. All it said was, "Hello Lindsay, nice blue hair." Since my icon at the time was of when I had bright blue hair, I immediately told her off and then called my mother in tears. She was fuming that this woman wouldn't leave me alone and get the hint that I don't want to talk to her. All my mother told me was that she was going to settle this once and for all. Since then, I haven't gotten a message for weeks. But I know my mother didn't do anything illegal. She probably just scared her off. So long, Jessica. I never want you in my life again. Number 3. Hello everyone. So, I'll start off by giving you a little background. I am a really short, skinny girl. I attend school in a pretty well-off neighbourhood, but it's really on the border zone. So, you have the middle high class on one side of the avenue and the extremely poor on the other. A few other friends and I usually wait for the bus on the poor side of the avenue, and I think I should mention that the bus stop is right after the intersection of another avenue, so the red light lasts for a good minute. Luckily, this time I was with Anne. Now, we were waiting and chatting for a bit, and we could see this guy approaching. He looked like he was high, as he was sweating, even though it was a really cold winter day. He had dirt on his knees and elbows, and a glassy look in his eyes. He stopped walking and asked me what the time was. I checked and told him that it was 1:45, as politely as I could. I've been taught that if you can avoid conflict, it's better to do so in the most polite way possible, so that you don't upset anyone. He stopped and stared at me for a good 30 seconds, and told me that I have a beautiful set of eyes. I have hazel eyes, and people usually compliment them. I usually grow really awkward at compliments on my eyes, because I have trichotillomania and in consequence have no eyelashes. So I turn my back to him and try to make conversation with my friend. He walks right up to her and also greets her with a kiss on the cheek and says something about her piercing blue eyes. And then he breaks off into a weird speech.
Look, girls, I am simply looking for something that belongs to me.
At this point, I thought he was going to rob us, but it turned out to be something creepier.
A girl with beautiful light-coloured eyes that belongs to me. And I was thinking that maybe you two would come with me, or I could join you wherever you are going while we're at it. Where are you going?
We were actually going back to Anne's place to revise for an exam. Now, I looked at her quickly but intensely and answered while looking at her. We're going shopping. She got my not-so-subtle hint and agreed. He then said that he would take us shopping. I checked to see if the bus was arriving, and it was, until the red light brought it to a halt. My friend looked when she saw me look away, and he said something really chilling.
You know, it's going to be long until the bus arrives.
And he put one of his arms around my waist. Now, I couldn't be polite anymore. I pulled away from him. I honestly thought it would be harder, but apparently he did not see it coming. I walked onto the avenue and dragged Anne with me, all the while looking at the creep to check if he would try anything. The creep smiled right at us and kept talking about how beautiful our eyes were and how he just wanted to be with one of us, or if he was lucky, both, and similar stuff. Then the bus started coming towards us and we immediately got in. The creep did not follow us, and Anne scolded me for talking to an off-looking stranger. Number 4. Let me begin by giving you a little background information. I had known Manny for many years, and we were great friends. That was until he had started to become depressed and sometimes suicidal shortly after being dumped by his first real girlfriend. He started blaming me and a few of my other friends for all of his problems, that we had shown her a life better than he could ever give her. This is because me and my friends drink and have parties and just an all-around good time. We would always invite them, but he would have a miserable time, while she would enjoy herself. Manny was also my neighbour. We shared an alleyway where everyone's driveway was located. He would often walk over to my house unannounced, just to hang out, which never bothered me. Lots of my friends would do this all the time. He was one of the biggest guys I've ever met, easily over 6 feet tall and 250 pounds of pure giant Mexican, while I am just 5'7". Now, at this point, I had not spoken to or seen him in months. He had just gone radio silent on us. We had heard from his brother that he had been committed and would be getting out soon, that he was doing great and they had him on meds to balance him out. I was glad to hear that he was doing better and sent him well wishes. It was a Friday night weeks later, and I was relaxing in my house, smoking a joint, when the phone rang. I answered the call and heard only silence. Thinking that someone had the wrong number, I hung up. The phone immediately rang again. This time, there was a voice on the phone. It was Manny. He talked about how he was back home and was doing better and was wondering if he could come over. I told him sure, but I couldn't hang out for long because my boyfriend was headed over to watch movies. Now, not 2 seconds later, my door opened and he walked in. I hadn't even hung up the phone yet. He had to have been standing right outside my house during the brief call. He sat down on the couch and just kind of stared at me for a while. I broke the silence by telling him, "It's good to see you, you're looking good." Normal icebreaker type of stuff. Because honestly, he was already starting to creep me out, but I brushed it off due to the joint I had just finished. He just stared at me, finally saying, "Thanks." So I did my best to hold a conversation for the next 10 minutes, with little to no reply from him, until my boyfriend texted me saying that he was on his way, and then I remembered that I forgot to pick up the movie. I stood up, telling Manny that he was on his way, and that I had to run to the store and grab the red box movies. He jumped up and spat out, "I'll go with you. I need something to eat." I hesitantly agreed. What could be the harm? The store was only across the block in a shopping centre. We walked out to my car and headed to the store. This is where it started getting strange, beyond my stoned paranoia. He began talking about death, and that he had always wondered what it would be like to see someone die. I tried to brush this off, and cracked a few jokes, trying to keep the mood light. Fast forward, we were at the store. I grabbed my movies and began following him around the store. He never stopped to look at anything. He just circled the store about 4 times. During this time, my boyfriend called saying that he was in town and asking me where I was. I explained to him what was going on, and he agreed to meet me at the store and follow us to the house. Manny, overhearing this, storms towards the front of the store, out the doors and straight to my car. When I reached the car, he was inside, buckled up, digging around in his pockets. My boyfriend is parked next to me, and I nodded at him to motion that we were leaving. We pulled up to what is notoriously the longest traffic light in town and waited. During the wait, Manny began talking about fear and how weak a man who has fear in his eyes and heart is. I wasn't paying too much attention because my boyfriend was behind me, flirting with me from his car, waving and blowing kisses, etc. So when I did turn to look at Manny, he was now wearing a pair of latex gloves and taking off his seatbelt, all the while smiling at me. I instantly freaked out. "What are those, and why are you wearing gloves?" And any other logical question someone paralyzed in fear can say at that moment. He smiled big and said, "You'll see," and began digging in his pockets. Oh no, what do I do? Jump out of the car? Start wailing on the biggest Mexican I've ever seen? I do the next best thing and do what any gun-toting Texan would, and went for the glove box, reaching for my loaded .40 caliber. This is in Dallas, by the way. With his free hand, he tried to stop me, but I had my hand on it. and I was now pointing the gun at him. "Get out of the car." That was the bravest thing I could muster, and he slowly pulled his hand out of his pocket, holding on to a knife. "Drop it!" I scream. He half listens and jumps out of the car, running towards home, knife still in hand. The light finally turned green, and I gunned it home, with what I'm sure is my confused as hell boyfriend following behind. We got to my house and I told him everything that just happened, and he was freaking out. As I was telling him the story, I happened to look out my bedroom window that overlooks my driveway, and he was standing there looking up at me, knife still in hand. I of course do what anyone would do and scream, promoting him to run down the alley towards his house. We never spoke again, and only once in a while see each other in public, and every time he would just smile and wink at me. I later heard from a few friends that he denied any of it happening, and that I was stoned and freaking out on him. Shortly after, I moved states and I haven't met him again, and I hope I never do. Hello everyone, Sinister here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, remember to leave a like below and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, leave me a comment down below telling me which one of these was your favourite story. And, as always, stay sinister.